Before.
No.
Jack Batten is a very successful author, and this specific book is about J.J. Robinette. And first of all, let's give you some trivia. I'll ask the questions. You'll give me short, succinct, colourful answers. Which famous hockey character was defended by J.J. Robinette but went to jail where he was served, he says, steak and lobster in his cell?
That would be Harold Ballard. Now, Harold Ballard and Stafford Smythe, who was alive then, he died in the process of the trial. They were charged with running a couple of scams around Maple Leaf Gardens in the late 60s. One of the scams was when construction crews were coming to Maple Leaf Gardens to put in new seats and that sort of stuff. They would make detours to the Smythe and Ballard residences and do a whole lot of work there.
What did Ballard get for that?
He went to the penitentiary, so I think it was 3 years.
J.J. Robinette is now 77, coming up 78. Why is a distinguished lawyer like this not best used as, for instance, if there were a vacancy, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Canada?
Well, he was asked to go on the bench twice onto the Court of Appeal in Ontario, and inevitably, you know, given his erudition and all the rest of it, he would have ended up, I'm sure, as Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Canada. But he turned it down both times. Do you know why?
No.
He said it'd be too boring.
Well, that's a good, straightforward man. Now, how many people did he defend for murder, and many did he lose to the hangman's noose? He's
batting 1 for 17, or would that be 16 for 17? He defended 17 people charged with murder, and these are in the days, as you say, when you went to the noose, and usually you went to the noose pretty quickly. There wasn't a lot of hanging around. No. And pardon the pun. Unintentional, but not bad. I'll save that up. And one of them was indeed hanged, and that was a guy in Toronto. You remember the Boyd gang in '52?
Steve Boyd. Steve Wyatt.
Edwin Alonzo. Edwin Alonzo Boyd. They careened around Toronto holding up banks and all the rest of it, and a member of the gang was Steve Suchan. Well, Suchan and another guy, member of the gang named Leonard Jackson, were driving a car through downtown Toronto at high noon, and a police car got on their tail, and an inspector, they pulled Suchan's car over. Inspector Tong, great name, got out, approached the car. Suchan gunned him down. Okay? High noon, main intersection, a policeman. Doesn't sound like a winner, does it? So Mr. Robinette defended him. Now, the way he took the case is kind of interesting. He was working in his offices at McCarthy & McCarthy late one night. McCarthy & McCarthy is the firm he's been associated with all these years. And there's a cleaning lady on the floor. He recognized her. She was always there. She came up to him and said, my son's in trouble. Would you act for him? And he said, well, what's he done? And she said, his name is Steve Suchan. He's charged with shooting a policeman. And Mr. Robinette, you can't say no to a cleaning lady at night, so he said, okay, I'll take the case. And he did.
Did he get him off?
He hanged.
Oh, he hanged. Oh,
not
he was
not Robinette, Suchan.
No, he was hanged. So many
right.
people say that a criminal hangs. A criminal is hanged.
Is hanged.
I hope you're not one of these sloppy people who uses the other form.
Well, not after this lesson.
No, I should certainly hope not.
The two guys went on trial, Jackson and Suchan, and the late Arthur Maloney acted for Jackson. It was another, colorful counsel.
Yeah, another.
So the two fellas went to the noose, and
as most lawyers are very firmly political, is J.J. Robinette firmly allied with the political party?
Well, he's a liberal, but he's never been active in the sense that he's run for office or anything like that. He was asked on one occasion to be the leader of the Liberal Party in Ontario. There's a dead-end job for you. And he said no, and he was asked to run for Parliament once, and he said no to that too. And the reason is he said he didn't want to live his life in a fishbowl, that he wants.
For any young lawyers who might be, and it's difficult even to get articling nowadays, because so many people come out from Ontario trying to get articling here. He thinks I'm joking. I'm not.
No, well, since they can't get jobs in
Ontario.
Back there in the.
What are the ingredients that make Robinette the finest lawyer, you say, and others too, in Canada?
Yeah. Okay. Well, there are obvious things like hard work, clean living, all that stuff. But one of the things that other people told me about him, and that I noticed, in hanging around him for a year and a half, is that he can go quickly and directly to, you know, the matter that the case turns on. Not a whole lot of wasted motion. For instance, in an Andy Combine's case, you know, these guys come trooping in with 20 years worth of documents and stuff, and he's got to defend them. Well, he's got the knack of, you know, reaching in and pulling out a couple of documents that the case is going to turn on. Never mind all the other stuff. Going to argue on, you know, these 2 points that I've got right here. That's what makes him different. And that's what judges tell me too. They say so many counsel come in here, you know, and bore the pants off us and waste time and all the rest of it. John Robinette comes in here, and we know that he's going to talk to us only about the things that we're going to have to make the case turn on.
All right, now let's take a break and turn to this Evelyn Dick murder.
Juicy.
A real juicy one.
Yeah.
Mind you, we have some juicy murders here, but yours are probably more disgusting than ours. With Jack Batten after the break. I read bits of your book about the Evelyn Dick murder case, which Robinette took sometime during the war. Is that correct?
Yeah, 45, 46, that one ran.
Tell me the story.
Bit into 47.
Tell me the
well,
story.
It's the kind of case that you think should have happened in England, because it's got all those elements in it, you know, sex, horror, murder, courtroom drama, surprise ending, all of that stuff. Well, Evelyn Dick was from Hamilton, Ontario, and she's an extraordinarily beautiful young woman, about 25. And she kept intimate company with several wealthy men around town on the sly, you see. And they supplied her with jewels, furs, money, an apartment, all of that sort of thing. So she was that sort of woman.
You
right?
mean they had a fancy coal ghetto in Hamilton?
There must be some line in between courtesan and coquette, something like that. Mm-hmm. Woman like that. So
she was a hooker.
No, she doesn't quite deserve that. Mm-hmm. Close. But she was extremely successful. So for a reason that surprised almost everyone...
She was a good hooker who charged a lot of money.
That's right.
Right.
She had a lot of jewels.
Right.
So for a reason that surprised everyone, probably including herself, she married a streetcar conductor named John Dick. Now this marriage was not consummated even. It did not see out the day. She left him that night realizing, my God, what have I done? I've made a terrible error here. So she went off and continued her life. She had a boyfriend named Bill Bohozuk.
One of a number.
One of a number.
But he was a kind of steady boyfriend.
Right.
He wasn't charged any money.
No.
Right.
So 6 months go by from this short-term marriage to John Dick, the streetcar conductor, when on the hill on the side of Hamilton Mountain, a torso turned up. Head, arms, legs, gone. Well, it was identified through
just a
means.
Plain torso.
Yep.
No head, no arms, no
Ghastly,
legs.
right? This is horror we're talking. Mm-hmm. It was identified as John Dick. Well, the police went to work. The police work was not dynamite in this case. The police went to work, charged Evelyn Dick, Bill Bohozuk, and Evelyn Dick's two parents, the McLeans. Now,
Scotch people.
Yeah, 4 people.
They came from Scotland.
I'm afraid so. Terrible.
Takes all kinds
in the course
to
of
make a country.
In the course of the investigation, Donald McLean, the father, he worked as a superintendent at the Hamilton Street Railway, was revealed to have embezzled over some 20 years $200,000.
And furthermore, when he was spending it around town, he didn't go change it. He spent it in nickels and dimes.
That's right.
He stood at the bar and he shoveled out nickels and dimes to buy drinks, and nobody ever accused him of
Nobody blew the
stealing.
whistle.
Why was he protected? I remember that too.
Well, one theory is that the accountant of the Hamilton Street Railway was doing likewise, and he was afraid that if he ratted on Donald McLean, he too would be swept up.
But now, okay, let's get back to the torso.
Okay.
The torso is that of John Dick.
The torso is John Dick.
A short-lived husband.
That's right. So
became a midget overnight. Go on.
Not even overnight. Anyway, so Evelyn Dick goes on trial first. The rest were held in abeyance, and she did not have Mr. Robinette defending her at the first trial, and she was convicted and sentenced to be hanged. While she was in prison, she said, I need somebody to appeal this case for me. And Mr. Robinette had a reputation then as a very superior appeal court lawyer. He took the appeal, won a new trial, mainly or principally on the grounds that the statements which Evelyn Dick gave, and there were some 12 of them, to the two policemen were improperly taken, and the statements constituted the best evidence against her. Come back for the next trial, and Mr. Robinette said, okay, I'll defend you. This is only his second murder trial, so he had little experience, and he again got the statements ruled out of evidence, made a shambles of the prosecution case, got an acquittal. The following week, Bohozuk and Donald McLean went on trial for the murder, and Evelyn Dick was the principal witness against her.
Them.
Right? She came in and refused to testify.
Because she was married to Bohozuk.
No, she just said, I'm not saying anything. So she was sentenced for contempt, but the two guys walked. No, Bohozuk walked. McLean made a deal. He said he pleaded guilty to defacing a human body or something like that. So he got 5 years. Another case, see, it doesn't stop here. During the search of Evelyn's house, which was paid for by all the gentlemen on the sly, they found a suitcase, heavy suitcase. Opened up the suitcase, this is the police, there's something wrapped in cement.
A block of concrete in the suitcase. They chipped away the concrete, and what
do we find?
Did they find?
A baby's body. And they figured it was the illegitimate child of Evelyn Dick, one of 3, that had vanished. This child had vanished. She said it had been adopted. So she went on trial for the murder of the child. Mr. Robinette, again, defended her. Well, he said that there was a feeling in the city of Hamilton and in the courtroom and among the jury that no matter what, this woman should not be allowed to get away with the sort of life she had led, right? So it didn't matter what defense was raised. He said he just knew she was going to be convicted. Well, she wasn't convicted of murder. She was convicted of manslaughter. And the judge gave her the maximum. He gave her life in prison. She served 14 years and then was paroled and lives today somewhere in Ontario under another name. And a man phoned up Mr. Robinette a few years later and said to him, I know what her name is. I know where she lives. I can put you in touch with her. And he said, don't tell me. I don't wish to know. So, end of the case. Anyway, it was great stuff.
Was this during the war or after the war?
The murder was in 46 and the final trial in spring of 47.
Was she the only one initially charged with the murder of John Dick?
No, they started off charging 4 of them. Bohozuk, the boyfriend, and Donald McLean, the father, and the mother as well. But then they withdrew the charges against the mother and they used her as a witness against the daughter. But it wasn't enough.
And of course, this is typical of the work of a good lawyer, in that he found that the police had in some way not acted quite properly in getting the statements, and therefore when it came into the courtroom on appeal, after the conviction, he was able to have them ruled out. And the moment those statements were ruled out, of course, the evidence would evaporate like a morning mist, or like snow off a dike, you might say.
Very good. The statements were crazy. Some of the statements were clearly
Should she have been acquitted?
But yes.
That's the proper legal answer.
That's the proper legal answer.
Because no matter what one thinks, if the Crown can't prove its case, the Crown has got to find you guilty. You don't have to prove your innocence.
Right. Mr. Robinette's theory is that it was the father, Donald McLean, the Scotsman, who did it.
Yeah.
And he argued that in the Court of Appeal, and they seem to, kind of go for that a bit, but of course, they didn't have to decide that matter.
You've been good fun this morning, Jack. I don't suppose there are more than 2 or 3 lawyers who have met Robinette and want to buy your book anyway, but we gave it a plug.
Well, listen, if you can sell 150 Pritikins, maybe you can sell 5 Robinettes.
How many do you mean 100? We sold thousands of them.
Oh, thousands, right.
Pritikin is an important book. Yours is for bedside reading. Thanks, Jack. Nice to meet you. Don't do another book on hockey, though, please.
Okay.
I'll be back with Disneyland after the break.
Jack, it won't be long before the Capilano River will be swollen with salmon as they return to the hatchery here in North Vancouver. It's too soon yet because the river is not high enough. It is not too soon, however, for Hollywood, in particular Walt Disney Productions, which is down here and has discovered 50 new stars. Producer Jeff Blyth is a veteran of Walt Disney films, and it seems appropriate that he should be making movies about wildlife. Here are some of his assistants looking for it.
What we're trying to find right here is a spot that we can set our camera in that's wide enough and deep enough to cover the lenses, as well as to give us a nice scenic view around the cameras so that we can have the fish swim past. And right now we're just trying to get an assessment of what we've got here on the bottom in the way of large rocks that we can't move and small rocks that we could to rearrange the scenery.
The divers are Canadians, part of the 40-member crew that will spend over $1 million on the movie. And this is how Hollywood goes fishing. The difference here is that they will be putting the fish back in the Capilano River. The Circle Vision camera. It is unique in the world, developed by the Disney Corporation. The result is a movie that surrounds you with a 360-degree perspective.
What we're hoping to do this time that hasn't been done in the past is to tell little stories, little vignettes about the people of Canada. One of the things that Circle Vision does uniquely is put you into a place. It takes you somewhere you've perhaps never been before. And what we hope to do is to take you to places, but from the perspective of people from across Canada. As an example, we hope to do a story about a young ballerina. The payoff of that story is to be on stage during a performance with the ballet company with a full house. And that's what Circle Vision does uniquely, but at the same time, it's from the perspective of this ballerina. We've sort of been through the practices with her and through the rehearsals and leading up to that moment, so that it also shows things in a slightly different perspective than you might have seen before, in that it's sort of a backstage look at the same time.
A different landscape launched Blyth into the world of Circle Vision. His first film for Disney was shot in China. Later, he shot a film in France. He adds to his credits 2 others, The Eternal Sea and American Journeys, which is shown in Disneyland in California.
We have 9 35mm cameras. Each of them is mounted around a central pedestal, pointed straight up into a 45-degree mirror. The reason for that is that you couldn't just take a big plate, for example, and stick 9 cameras on it pointed outwards. You couldn't get all of the pictures to line up from the front of the lens all the way to infinity. But this particular configuration does, and so it presented an enormous problem optically to come up with a corrected sphere for this camera, underwater camera, that was corrected, because normally you take a camera and you put it underwater and the looking through water automatically changes the focal length. Well, focal length was extremely critical in Circle Vision to make all the scenes match. So we had to come up with a corrected, looks like a big donut of glass that the camera sits in. And this particular rig weighs about 2,200 pounds, fully loaded with film, and it's completely self-contained. Of course, it's actually almost like a little submarine in a way.
So to put it in a kind of perspective for the viewer is like having eyes in the back and the sides of your head.
Very much so.
Stupid question, what do you do with the cameraman? Why isn't he in the picture?
I spend a lot of time crawling around on my hands and knees underneath the camera trying to get out of the shot. I've had to sit on top of it sometimes. When we've worked underwater, I usually swim above the camera, although we won't have that luxury this time.
So tell me what's going to happen here at the Capilano River near the hatchery. What are you going to do?
Well, we're going to sink the camera down in among the rocks and try to create a very naturalistic looking setting. And then we're going to do a controlled release of some salmon to swim by the camera. And what we're looking for is approximately a 10-second scene that ties in with the story that we're doing up in Morristown, which will involve utilizing a fish net. And what we need to do is see the fish net entering the water and hopefully capturing a salmon.
So you're shooting in Vancouver just for convenience, basically?
Yes.
There you have three coming right at your hand. Catch 5 of them at the hand.
But all the technology in the world will not mollify an underwater prima donna.
Okay, Brian, release him. Rocking him. Roll this thing. Not moving.
Having once made it to their spawning beds, the 50 coho salmon are not particularly anxious to make the swim all over again. The Capilano hatchery has donated the salmon for a shot that will last about 10 seconds in the final product. And the cost of those 10 seconds? $20,000. The film will be shown at Expo 86 in a special theater being built by Telecom Canada. For the viewer, it will be like standing in the middle of a fishbowl, or so the producers hope.
Can we put him down closer to the camera, man? Actually, before we on the other side of
Remember, if you want to confuse Willie van der Zam and the Non-Partisan Association, phone 734-4799. Put your tongue in your cheek and tell them you want him to run for mayor. I wish he'd get off the fence. Might get a good vote, but you won't be able to tell by this petition if I have my way. Tomorrow morning, if you're afraid of the tax department, be sure to watch, because I have a couple of battlers for freedom, justice, decency, who will tell you how to hold your head high and the hell with the tax department. That's the federal tax department. Not me, I'll be nice. Tomorrow at 9 a.m. precisely.
Confessions of Bobby Wilson.
Oh, yeah. Confessions of Bobby Wilson on check at midnight.